Today, we are talking about one of the most important books of the last century, maybe ever. It's Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Now, this is a short book, but wow, is it powerful. It was written by a psychiatrist who actually survived 3 years in Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz. And out of that unimaginable horror, he developed a completely revolutionary idea about what really drives us as human beings. Frankl often used this quote from the philosopher Nietzsche, because for him, it wasn't just a nice phrase. It was the absolute truth he saw with his own 2 eyes. It's the core idea of his entire life's work. What he realized was that in the face of total despair, having a why, having a purpose, was literally the difference between life and death. To really get what Frankl is saying, you have to understand the setting. He wasn't thinking this up in a comfortable office or a university lab. His laboratory was the brutal day-to-day reality of the concentration camps. Here, stripped of absolutely everything, he got to see humanity at its most raw, at its most naked. He saw what happens when people have, as he put it, nothing to lose except their so ridiculously naked life. And all of this led him to the book's central question. As a psychiatrist, he was constantly observing his fellow prisoners, and he noticed something incredible. The people most likely to survive weren't always the strongest or the healthiest, not at all. It was the people who held on to a sense of purpose, a project they needed to finish, or a loved one they had to see again. This observation led him to a totally new theory about what makes us tick as humans. It was an idea that really pushed back against the giants who came before him. He argued that our main drive in life, our primary motivation, isn't the pursuit of pleasure or power, it's our search for meaning.
This chart puts it all into perspective. You had Sigmund Freud, who said everything we do is driven by a will to pleasure. Then you had Alfred Adler, who said no, it's a will to power. But Frankl, after everything he'd been through, came along and said, you're both missing the most important piece of the puzzle. Our deepest need, he argued, is a will to meaning.
And based on this powerful idea, he founded a whole new school of psychotherapy. He called it Logotherapy. The word logos is Greek for meaning, so it's literally meaning therapy. And unlike a lot of therapy that focuses on digging into your past, logotherapy is all about the future. The goal is to help you find that unique meaning that's just waiting for you to discover it. And boy, is this idea more relevant today than ever. Frankl identified this very modern problem he called the existential vacuum. You know that feeling? It's that inner emptiness, that sense of boredom, where people have all the means to live a comfortable life, but they have no meaning to live for. He believed this vacuum was the real root cause of so much depression, aggression, and addiction in our world. So, the big question is, how do we escape this vacuum? Well, Frankl didn't just point out the problem, he gave us a solution. He laid out this really practical framework, showing that meaning isn't some abstract thing we have to just invent. It's something we discover, and it's available to every single one of us through 3 clear paths. Let's break these down real quick. First, you can find meaning by what you give to the world, through your work, your creations, your deeds. Second, you can find it in what you take from the world, by experiencing beauty or art or nature, or, most importantly, by loving another person. And then there's the third path. And this one is the most profound. You can find meaning in the attitude you choose when you are faced with suffering that you simply cannot change. This third path, this brings us to what Frankl believed was our ultimate power as human beings. Think about it. In the camps, literally everything could be taken from a prisoner. Their family, their health, their possessions, even their name. But there was one thing, one final thing that could never be taken away. And this is it. This is the heart of the book. They could control your body, they could control your environment, but they could never control your mind. Even in the worst possible situation, you always had the freedom to choose how you would respond. You could choose to face your fate with dignity and courage. That choice was yours alone. This just sums it up perfectly. When we are slammed up against a wall, a fate we cannot alter, like a terminal illness or a terrible loss, that's when the challenge shifts. It's no longer about changing the situation outside of us. The challenge becomes about changing ourselves on the inside. And in doing that, we can turn a personal tragedy into an inner triumph. Okay, so how do we take these huge, profound lessons and actually apply them to our own lives? Frankl's work is so much more than a historical story. It's a manual for living a life of purpose. So let's boil it all down into a clear, actionable plan that we can start using right now. All right, here's your takeaway. First things first, flip the question you're asking. Don't ask what you expect from life. Instead, ask what life expects from you. It's a game changer. Second, actively look for meaning in those 3 areas we talked about: your work, your love for others, and your courage in hard times. Third, when you face something you can't change, see it as a challenge to change yourself for the better. And finally, I love this one, live as if you're living for the second time, and as if you had already messed it up the first time. It's such a powerful way to live with purpose and responsibility. In the end, Frankl's message is one of what he calls tragic optimism. He knew the absolute worst that human beings are capable of because he lived through it. But he also witnessed our incredible, unbelievable capacity for dignity, for love, and for meaning, even in the face of all that horror. We contain both possibilities. The choice is always ours. So I'll just leave you with this question, which really gets to the core of Viktor Frankl's life-changing work. Just remember, between what happens to you and how you react to it, there is a space. In that space is your power and your freedom to choose, and that is where you'll find your meaning.